Hey guys, so I was going to be in front of the camera again for this review, as you see here, but I'm just having a lot of issues right now, and I had a full-blown panic attack and almost lost my mind because I just couldn't focus. So I don't know if I'll ever be in front of the camera again for a review, just so you know. Alright, enjoy my complete slam dunk on this duty of a film. I know I'm over a week late on this, but, you know, I've been busy. Life got in the way. Life, it be suckin'. But now, I'm here to deliver. Let's get into this. I didn't hate this movie. It wasn't the worst MCU movie ever or anything, but for the caliber of talent involved, it was embarrassing, truly and utterly disappointing, and a true embarrassment to the MCU, and really an embarrassment to writing and filmmaking as a whole. And I love Taika Watiti. What We Do in the Shadows, great. Jojo Rabbit, really good. Hunt for the Wilder People, amazing. Ragnarok, great. He's great at making really emotional and unique character dramas wrapped up in a witty comedy. And this doesn't ruin him for me. I still want to see more of his films. But he needs to stop. It's time to stop this nonsense, at least in the MCU. This movie is like Ragnarok, but with all of the charm ripped away and the bad jokes pumped up to 11. Every bad instinct that movie had, this film has, but without the qualities that made it unique. That was a revitalization of Thor's character, and it was a breath of fresh air because we hadn't seen it before. Now, the shtick is tiring. Thor's character is actually annoying now. It's unbelievable. But before I get there, before I talk about Thor, Jane, the bad humor, the bad storytelling, ugly effects, I have to talk about Gorr. I can't hold it in anymore. I gotta talk about this guy before anything else because I literally couldn't believe what they did with him. Half of this video will probably be me just talking about him, so get ready. They took Christian Bale, one of the best actors of the past 20 years, an icon in the industry and an absolute chameleon, and wasted him. Completely and utterly wasted him like he's just another disposable actor. Fuck. He really tries. He does. And there are a few moments where he's amazing. I mean, he's Christian Bale. Of course he isn't bad, but those tiny little moments don't make up for the complete lack of logic, character development, and sustenance that he's missing. Okay, who was he? Where was he? There is no context to anything happening in the opening scene. The movie starts, it's Christian Bale walking through some random desert on a random planet. We don't know where, when, who, why, or anything about his character. There's no context to what's going on with him and his daughter. There's no context to why his daughter died and why his planet is failing. There's no information about him. And I'm not saying you have to spoon feed us every detail about every character, but could you give us something? Who is this guy? Why should I care? This opening scene was so rushed, and I need some kind of idea of what the hell I'm looking at. He's just some random guy in a desert worshiping a random god. Okay, the god that he's been worshiping and looking for all this time just appears out of nowhere? How? How did that island appear to him? Why at that moment did the god allow him to enter his forest? It makes zero sense. And when he gets there, the god is cartoonishly dickish to him. He is such a dick to him. And like a complete fucking idiot, the god is like, "Hey guy that I've been shitting on for 5 minutes and whose life I just ruined, let me tell you about the sword on the ground next to you that can kill all of us gods." It's so convenient and lazy. The sword that he needs to kill the gods and move the plot along is just sitting on the ground next to him. This movie has things just appear and has people just tell each other how to further the plot. It never happens naturally. And why did the sword call to him? I get that it needs a new user, but why him? Why the guy before him? Does it choose certain people for a reason, or does it just randomly choose whoever's standing next to it? Or do you have to be worthy of it? Maybe there could be some parallels there between him and Thor. What it means to be worthy and your connection to a certain weapon being a good or bad thing. The concept of wielding power and the real questions of how to use it. But nope, no exploration of any real themes. And I'm sorry, the entire film is relying on me caring that his kid died. But I don't. You need to have some kind of context to understand where a character is coming from. Yes, having a child die is a sad thing, but it's the most generic and cheap thing you can do for a character, so you need to execute it perfectly. But to care about someone's daughter dying, you have to understand their relationship with each other. I have to understand what he's losing, and I have to have something to connect to. They have like 2 minutes together, and she has one line. Show me them really struggling. Show me her little quirks, and give me some moments to really connect with them. You can't just say, look, his kid died. Feel bad for him. No, you set it up like shit, so I feel nothing. I don't know what I'm caring about. And while Bale's performance was good, he didn't get enough material to chew on. He's in a total of 4, I counted, 4 scenes and then the climactic battle. He doesn't get enough time to develop who he is and what he is. We know what he wants, but that's it. He wants to kill all gods because his god was a dick. Okay, fair enough. But it's paper thin. It's just joke, 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 Christian Bale being creepy, joke, 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 Christian Bale kidnapping kids, joke, 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 funny, funny, haha, joke, 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 Christian Bale fighting the heroes and dying. They don't weave him into the plot well enough, and he kind of becomes a big fat dud. And we don't actually see him do anything in the entire film. He is the God Butcher, slayer of gods, and we see him kill one single god. The rest are off screen and we're just told about it. The Guardians see some dead gods on a screen and they're like, oh no. But this is the classic example of telling, not showing, and it completely undercuts his menacing presence. Yes, it's okay to see the aftermath of a couple of the kills, but could we see a couple? Could we maybe understand the threat Thor is facing? We don't know these gods or their significance to the universe, so having them die off screen is meaningless. It's actually astonishing how much of an opportunity they missed here. They could have made the most nuanced and compelling villain the MCU has ever seen, but instead, they give us a cookie-cutter MCU villain who barely does anything, then dies in the end. The Necrosword starts slowly killing him throughout the story, and at the same time, Mjolnir is killing Jane. There could have been some really beautiful and poignant scenes in there where their stories reflect each other because they're kind of on the same path, but they do absolutely nothing with it. Another missed opportunity to have parallels in the hero and villain's journey. And his ending. God damn, his ending might be one of the worst I've ever seen in a Marvel film. So he makes it to eternity, which I loved. I loved seeing the cosmic silhouette of the universe on screen, and it was visually amazing. I've always wanted to see eternity on screen, but he makes it there. His entire journey has led to this moment. Every god he killed, every child he kidnapped, every evil act he committed, it's all been leading to this. He can finally wipe all of the gods out. His entire journey in the film has been to kill the gods because he hates them. And he wishes his daughter back so that she can be raised by a god. Fucking facepalm. Are you kidding me? He's about to make his wish, and Thor tells him to choose love. Gorr says, well, I'm dying. There will be no one to take care of her. Jane then says, no, she won't be alone, alluding to the fact that Thor will be there for her. And he just believes them and wishes her back. He leaves his daughter in the hands of the one thing he's been trying to kill the entire movie. By his rules, he's a terrible father. This is like if in Inglourious Bastards, Lieutenant Aldo Rain leaves his child with Hans Landa after trying to kill the Nazis for the entire film. It makes no sense. Thor doesn't do anything to prove to Gorr he'll take care of her. They don't have a conversation about anything the entire movie. He just fights them and hates them. Then after all of that, one nod from Thor persuades him to give him his daughter? The reason he's been on this mission in the first place? You have to be fucking kidding me. After everything. Did the writers get to the end and forget about the entire movie? Jesus. And speaking of his plan, they literally find out where he's going and what his end goal is because he writes it down on a rock with chalk. Like a Saturday morning cartoon character. It's absolutely ridiculous. You have the villain asking one of the deepest philosophical questions we've ever faced as humans, and you do nothing with it. Instead of philosophical conversations about the role of gods and if they're really good for us, they just have the villain chase the heroes around, shoot shadow monsters at them, scream a bunch, write down his evil plan on a rock, and then die in the end. Surface level garbage. And I'm sorry, but Gorr is not a good villain, and this movie hinges on him. He is central to the plot, and he is fundamentally broken. Like, what temple is he even at in the end? He makes it to eternity, but how did he know where to go? Where is he? Where is this final battle taking place in? Can we get an establishing shot of where the characters are, please? I don't think I'm asking too much here. Thor kills Zeus, takes his lightning bolt, and then it turns out that the lightning bolt wasn't even necessary. Jane destroys the Necro Sword with Mjolnir, so they didn't need the lightning bolt after all. He proves that he's still worthy at one point by picking up Mjolnir, so why doesn't he just call it and use it? Thor with Mjolnir is more powerful than 30 untrained kids. He tells Jane not to pick it up again, so okay dude, you use it. No? You aren't going to just so you can make us think the lightning bolt is needed for the plot? Jesus. Thor giving his powers to the kids was so whatever. I didn't hate it, but when a little girl was shooting lightning out of her teddy bear's eyeballs at shadow monsters, I thought, so this is the climax of a Thor movie? It was weird. I liked the crumbs of the story they were trying to tell, like the realization that Zeus is a coward and a shitty god, and maybe all gods are shitty, but it doesn't go anywhere impactful. I don't think there was a single impactful scene in the movie. Every weighty scene gets bogged down by humor, and I mean 90% of the emotional scenes. When Thor realizes that Zeus is a terrible god that doesn't care about anything, it would have been great to see him struggle with the question of, are gods needed? Is Gorr right? If all of these gods are so terrible, maybe they do need to be wiped out. Then Thor would have a real existential crisis to deal with in the middle act of the film. And he could have shown Gorr that not all gods are bad. Do something, show something that proves that there are benevolent and caring gods out there. Then maybe Gorr could realize that they aren't all bad and his journey could wrap up with forgiveness and acceptance. Each character questioning their reality, then coming to a beautiful realization in the end. But no, they don't tackle any deep themes here other than love. I love my ex-girlfriend. I love my hammer. I guess I love my daughter. I mean, this movie deals with cancer, child kidnapping, and the question of if God should exist or not. These are heavy themes, but instead of building on them in any meaningful way, they focus on the ha-has. Jane barely even struggles with her cancer, and she barely looks sick. She just looks like she has the flu. Give us some scenes of her puking and having her hair fall out and really struggling with the process of stage 4 cancer. Late stage cancer is an ugly fucking thing, and Disney didn't have the balls to tackle it in a realistic way. She has one scene in the hospital, and it's played for laughs with Darcy. They take these adult topics and make them palatable for 10-year-olds. Those fucking goats were annoying. The first time they screamed, I didn't laugh. It's a screaming goat, just not my cup of tea, but okay. Then they screamed again, and again, and again, and again. And not a single person in my theater was laughing. Not even the kids. We were all just tired of it. And the whole room came together in this beautiful moment of combined perplexity. We were all sitting there just pondering the sheer stupidity of the script. See, Marvel movies do bring people together. But that, Thor flying around on Stormbreaker like it's a broom, not remembering the names of the Warriors 3, him doing the splits to stop 2 enemies, him having a love triangle with his hammers, arguing with the kid's floating head about what his name is, Valkyrie tickling Thor's nose while he's trying to make the kids feel better, Thor having a dumb middle school handshake. 90% of the humor just missed with me, and I know that humor is the most subjective thing out there, but it just didn't work for me, and it felt like Taika was more focused on making fun of Thor than honoring Thor. That play happens again, but it goes on way too long. We get it. That was a really funny and surprising joke in Ragnarok. Matt Damon randomly showing up was like 80% of the joke. Stop now. And the worst joke in the movie was definitely the Infinity Cones. Look, this might just be a passing thing to get a quick chuckle out of the audience. I get it. But this perfectly explains the comedy in this movie. They do realize that the blip is like the most catastrophic thing that's ever happened to mankind, right? Thanos murdered half of humanity, 3.5 billion people, the biggest genocide in human history. And they have his murder weapon on the side of an ice cream shop. That's like if in the 1950s they made an ice cream shop with a big swastika as the logo. Like, what are they doing? It's so dumb. And it just proves that Taika wasn't thinking about what makes sense in the story. He just wanted to have fun little gags in there, no matter how much it didn't make sense in universe. As long as it made Gen Zers laugh. Yeah, that would be a fun place to go in real life. But in the MCU, it makes no sense because every person on the planet had at least one person that blipped away for 5 years. Everyone was affected by this maniac. And I doubt they want to eat frozen yogurt out of his murder weapon. I'm not even sure if this script honestly got past the first draft. It was just whatever Taika came up with in his free time, whatever he thought of, every single thought that came to his mind, they went with it. And the love triangle between Thor and his hammers, fuck me. People are right when they say this feels like a parody of Thor. When did his hammers become sentient? His hammers have emotions? They can get jealous? That might have worked for some people, but it didn't work for me. Once again, Taika is just rewriting history to make it fit his script. To hell with what happened before. This would be cool now. Thor literally used both hammers at the same time in Endgame. He even tells Cap, no, you have the little one. He moved on from Mjolnir and now he wants the big new axe. But now, I guess not? Why weren't the hammers jealous back then? Oh, because this dumbass plotline didn't exist yet. I swear they killed 5 minutes of screen time doing Stormbreaker is jealous jokes. Instead of fleshing out Gorr's journey or doing some actual character work, they waste precious screen time making his hammer a jealous ex-girlfriend. It really pisses in the face of Thor. This Thor is a far cry from the man he was in the first 3 phases. He comes to Earth, learns the lesson of humility and how to be worthy again, learns how to work with a team and respect his fellow soldier. He loses his mother, loses his father, then struggles with his place in the universe as King of Asgard, realizes his power comes from within, loses his brother, takes his rightful place on the throne, goes on a journey to get a new axe, fails to save the universe, goes into a depression, then gets out of that depression to unleash his powers one last time and save the universe. Now he's just back to being a bumbling fool. He seems like he's learned nothing from the past 11 years. It's astonishing. He's like a drooling baby who doesn't understand things in the first half of the movie, then he's a completely different character in the second half when the plot needs it. This is his 4th movie. This is his 9th appearance, and he's regressing as a character. What was his lesson this time? Accepting love and learning to be a father? What? Jane dying and him becoming a father in the end don't mesh together thematically, and I don't understand what this movie was trying to say. They don't set up the father thing at all, and he's loved and lost before, so Jane dying had no impact. He certainly didn't seem to care that much, so why should I? She dies and floats away, and he's just like, that's unfortunate. This is the love of his life. This is what the movie is about, and he barely reacts to her death. And their relationship still sucked because it's still nothing more than, you're hot too, let's fuck. They have little to no chemistry, and Jane gets a statue For what? Helping to stop a guy who was kind of doing the right thing in the end? It seems like most gods in the MCU are bad and despicable people. So there is a question of if he was doing the right thing. And she helped stop that. She was Thor for a week, helped defeat a guy who was maybe doing the right thing, gets a statue for it, but Cap, Natasha, Clint, Tony, T'Challa, they don't get statues for defeating a guy who actually killed half of the universe. Off. Jane wasn't terrible, she was just really bad. Her becoming Thor was lame. She just stands next to the shattered pieces of Mjolnir, it cuts away, then it cuts back and she shows up as Thor. And she kicks so much ass with the hammer after only having like 1 or 2 days of training. She flies perfectly, throws it perfectly, and moves around like a true warrior. Thor's had thousands of years of practice, while she's had like 16 hours, and she's just as good as him. It was so sloppily done. We haven't seen her in the MCU in like 8 years, and she just fully becomes Thor 30 minutes into the movie. No build-up, no earned moment. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. She didn't even earn the power because of who she is as a person. She only got it because a man loved her. It wasn't even quote-unquote woke. It was just really poorly handled. Yes, I know it's in the comics, but not everything in the comics is good. And the story in the comic was better than this. At least it kind of made sense there. And how did she get into Valhalla when Sif couldn't? Thor says that you have to die in battle to get to Valhalla, but neither of them died in battle. Sif couldn't get in because she survived the battle. So how did Jane get in? She didn't die during the battle with Gorr. She was injured. The battle is over. The battle is done. She dies after the battle, after like 10-15 minutes of talking, just like Sif did. So they couldn't even be consistent with their own rules. And hands down, the worst scene in the film was when she was fighting Gorr at the end, and she was like, "My name is not Lady Thor, it's Mighty Thor, and if you can't say Mighty Thor, it's Dr. Jane Foster, and finally, eat my hammer!" Oh, it was so bad. I'm not kidding. It might have been the cringiest line I've ever heard delivered in the MCU. It was terrible. Natalie Portman was not believable in this role. And that was the one time where they were clearly talking to the audience. Hey, all of you bad people out there who call her Lady Thor, it's not Lady Thor. And they weren't talking to Gorr in that scene. She wasn't talking to him. She was talking to you. She was talking to the bad conservatives out there. She was saying, it's not Lady Thor. It's Mighty Thor, you pig men. If you can't call me Mighty Thor, it's Jane Foster. It's not Lady Thor. Hey, look at me. It's not Lady Thor. You watching the movie, you bad pig man. It's not Lady Thor. Even though Taika Watiti himself has called her Lady Thor. Fucking stupid. So the hammer is accelerating Jane's cancer. Thor asks the hammer in a flashback to always protect Jane. So when they find out that Mjolnir is killing her faster, wouldn't it stop letting her pick it up so that she can live? In one moment, it's a sentient being that is actively protecting Jane, but later in the film, it's just a hammer. If it really wanted to protect her, it would have made her unworthy to pick it up, or it would have flown away where she can't reach it. You know you're killing her. Why aren't you protecting her now? And how did the hammer all of a sudden just be able to construct itself back together? Why didn't it do that for Thor and Ragnarok? You're telling me love put Mjolnir back together? Fuck off. Just seeing Jane and remembering the promise it made to Thor gave it the strength to magically put itself back together. And now it has powers it never had before. It can break apart and come back together at will. That would have been helpful against Hela. But I forgot. This movie doesn't give a shit about anything that came before it. Seriously, you can find a flaw in every single scene in this film. I could go on for another hour. I just don't want to. I did like Christian Bale and Chris Hemsworth's performances. Some of the visuals were really cool, like the scene where they're fighting in black and white. It's always fun to hear Guns N' Roses. There are a couple chuckle-worthy moments, and it was cool to see Eternity and Hercules on the big screen. Other than that, this movie doesn't have much going for it. It's like multiple movies mashed into one, and Thor isn't the only one with an identity crisis. We have a Thor and Jane love story where they're going on a road trip together to rekindle the relationship. There's a story pondering the existence of gods and if they deserve to live. There's a story about Jane dealing with cancer, saving children, and the responsibility of being a parent. It's an 80s rock and roll action movie, and none of these themes and stories really come together in a cohesive way in the end. What was it all about? Genuinely, what was the meaning of this story? That love perseveres? I don't know. The few decent moments don't compensate for the terrible script, bad visuals, bad comedy, lackluster villain, confusing story, bad editing, rushed pacing, and lack of any real emotional impact. Thor: Love and Thunder gets 3.75 out of 10 pickles from me. This might be the most disappointing MCU movie other than Iron Man 3 for me. I really was expecting to love this film. Now, I kinda feel empty. Please, I pray that they don't ruin Fantastic Four and the X-Men. Oh wait, I forgot that Gorr killed all of the gods. I wish we would have seen it. Thank you for listening to me spout nonsense. At least we wasted our time together. And, until we meet again, peace out.